Hi everybody, welcome to 3D printing tips and tricks. Today we're going to be looking at how to do some 3D modeling. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about how to 3D model some Dungeons and Dragons figures, and I'm going to show you how I paint them. So I got into painting them probably about 2 years ago. I am going to warn you that I'm definitely not an expert in painting them. I do it for fun. I kind of guess what's going to work and what's not going to work. I'll show you some of the ones that I've done that a little bit later on. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I've done to show you how they wind up. As you can see on the screen right now, right over here, there we go, right over here, I'm using a program called Desktop 3D Hero. It's an online program, and you can actually customize your figures. So if you are familiar with, say for example, Hero Forge, then Hero Forge is something also that you can use to customize your figures. And if you're familiar with that, you'd be familiar with this. I prefer this one myself, but it's just what you like. So definitely try them both. There are also lots of free figures online that you can download from shapeways.com, thingiverse.com. So really a lot of options for the gamer, whether you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, whether you're playing Pathfinder, any kind of game. So I am going to show you how this one works. Okay, so as you can see right here, this is my character. It starts off pretty basic. You have the option of changing, and unfortunately because of the chat and my picture, you can't see all of the options on the right hand side, but you will see them as I bring them over to the left hand side. And I'm just going to go through a really quick one because this isn't really a 3D modeling tutorial. If you are interested in how this program works, you can go on the Richmond Public Library YouTube channel, and I did do a tutorial with author Adrienne Kress actually, and she and I went through this program and we made a tiefling bard for her. So you're more than, and actually that's what I'm going to paint today too. That's going to be my example, is the tiefling bard that she and I made. So if you are interested in how this program works, go to our YouTube channel. One of our moderators maybe will put up the link to that. It's also on our Twitch page, I believe. So just to show you really quickly how this works, if I wanted to, I could give this character a shield, and all I really have to do is click on shield. There we go. You see the little red dots. That shows you where it can go. I go attach to hand, and there we go. Now she's got a shield. I can change the pose of how I want the character to be. I can get really detailed if I want. I can click on the character and go show bones, and I can pose the character as I want the character. If that can be a little bit tricky, so I usually just do their presets. So here I'll show you one of the presets, for example. So here's a preset. This is the character now with the shield. I'm gonna not show the bones. And there we go. She's got an open hand there. I think she needs a sword or something. So let's give her actually, you know what? Let's give her a Celtic Warhammer. So I'm going to give this to her there. So there we go. So there you can see I'm already equipping. And then with this program, I can go to add to cart, and rather than actually adding it to cart, and you can't see it, it's off screen, but rather than adding it to cart, it will give me the option of downloading an STL file. And for those of you who are members of Richmond Public Library, and if you're not and you live in the Lower Mainland, you should be, you can use our 3D printers all online. You go on our website, go to use 3D printing. There's a 3D printing tutorial, and you can 3D print your own characters. So I would download this as what's called an STL file, and then after that what I would do is, and I will show you this program now. This is Cura. So Cura is the program that translates what I just did, the STL file that I just made. That's going to translate that into a file that the 3D printer understands. So here, let me just go back to this here. So all I have to do is click open. I would go down. I would find my file. and then I would set it up. So I'm not actually going to set up a file. So again, if you're interested in how this part works and you want a little bit more of a tutorial, chances are, well, not chances are, we will be doing more of this part of it on Twitch, but I want to save the bulk of today for the painting, because that's what I want to show you today. But just to give you an overview of how things are done, this is the program that it's free. You can actually download it off the Ultimaker website. You just Google Ultimaker, look for Cura, you can download it, you can check it out. And then this would set it up for our printers. So it's a pretty easy process to go through, and this is what it winds up looking like. So here is 3D printing, and actually I'll show you the finished product too. So right now on this I'm printing, I think it's like 6 different characters all at once. It took about 5 hours for this print to print. I'm not going to make you sit through 5 hours of the printing. I mean, you might want to, I don't know. But I don't have the time for that. So I'm going to just, this will take about 30 seconds. And as it prints, it's printing in something called PLA. That's what we use at the library. It's a type of plastic called polylactic acid. The easiest explanation is that it's made out of cornstarch. It's not entirely accurate, but it's the easiest explanation. It's a bioplastic, which means it's non-toxic. When it's melting, the fumes won't harm you. It's a really good plastic to use. It's not very strong, but it's great for making things like models for your gaming, and it's easy to paint. So I'll show you how that works in just a moment. So as you can see in this printing, the supports didn't really work very well, but yeah, it does smell like waffles when it's printing. With the supports that hold things up, like if you had a sword or an arm that's outstretched, here I'll stretch this arm, you would build these supports up to hold up the arm, and the supports, as you can see on this print, actually didn't survive. However, the print actually turned out really well, so I want to show you that. So I'm going to go to this screen here, and I'm going to move all of these aside. So this is what it wound up looking like. Oh, my mask got caught up on there. There we go. So this is what it wound up looking like. This is how it finished. And it looks like just this big jumble of plastic. But all of this kind of breaks off. I don't have the proper tools, because I'm going to do this actually in a different episode where I show you how to, don't eat the model either. Even though it's a bioplastic, you can't eat it. You will choke on it, and you probably can't digest it. But just to show you really quickly, you can see this actually pops right off, and I don't want to do this too much with my hands, because these models are so fine that it's really easy to break off, characters' limbs and things. So usually what I do is I use needle nose pliers and some other tools. So we'll do that in a different episode where I show you how to, a really good way of setting up your models. But today what I want to show you is these are some of the early ones that I did, that I painted. So here's one. This was a character that was done on Hero Forge and painted. So that's what he looked like when he was finished. This is probably one of my favorites. This is my Warforge, for those of you who are playing Eberron. And it's really a great way to get immersive in your tabletop role-playing when you've got a character that actually represents and looks like the character on your sheet, which is really quite fun. This is also one of my favorite ones here, which was a dwarf character in my campaign. The person who played this, he was Trogdor. He was a fighter, a fighter dwarf. And for those of you who know who Trogdor is, you'll be laughing like I did. And then I really like this one too. So this was a wizard, and you can see, or sorcerer rather. And let me see if I can go out a little bit so he focuses a little bit better. But you can see the spell actually coming out. Yeah, Trogdor. And actually, it's funny. I'll tell you a little story, because I've been playing with this guy for about a year, and none of us had even acknowledged the fact that he called his character Trogdor. And after a while, he said to us, "I don't think any of you know who Trogdor is." So he sent us the link to Trogdor, and then we all had a pretty good laugh. So this is another character that that we played. So yeah, so the camera sort of focused on that. This was a tiefling that I painted, and so before painting, the way that they look, and I had, oh, and I also wanted to show you that you don't have to just use these for painting characters either. So I actually painted entire sets. I didn't bring them in because it's pretty bulky, but I've made entire towns for maps, like your houses, castles, everything. You can also print for when you have things like conditions. So this one, for example, if you have a character who's invisible, this will help, and of course the camera is making, oh, there we go, that's probably a little bit better. So you put this around the character, so you know if Trogdor here decides to go invisible because he has a special ability for it, you know, a cloak or a ring or something, you can put this around the character, and that way you don't forget that he's invisible, and you can paint it and you can make it look really nice, and it just makes gaming, it makes it a little bit easier because you're not going to forget that the character is invisible. Not that the player is going to forget necessarily, but you know the dungeon master has a lot of stuff to remember. So having things like these condition rings just make the game really easy to easy to manage. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So the character that I had that is not, and you know what, I don't think he's here. So I'm going to show you. So for example, these this is what the plastic looks like when it's not primed. So the reason why you want to prime it, so just to give you a difference in what they look like. So there's this one has been primed, and these have not. The reason why you want to prime the PLA is that PLA as a plastic absorbs moisture. So it's one of the reasons why you can't use PLA for food stuff. Like you don't want to use it for cookie cutters. You don't want to use it to make cups or cutlery or anything like that, because the plastic will actually absorb liquid, and if it's water and whatnot, it can also create bacteria. So you wouldn't want to use it for anything like that. Painting it's not going to cause bacteria. However, if you just try to paint it, it's going to absorb a lot more paint than if you prime it first. So the primer will help you to use less paint. So you might use 1 or 2 layers instead of having to go layer after layer after layer to get that color that you want. So these ones not primed, I'm going to put these to the side. This one here is primed. This one, and this is kind of interesting too. So here, I'm going to show you this. So this guy here, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, or if you play any kind of tabletop role-playing game, then you know that this is a beholder. Yesterday in the library, when I had my figures out to show some 3D printing, I had a whole bunch of people coming up to me saying, "Oh, you made a little COVID," and I had to explain to them that it was actually from Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't from now. So this guy, the beholder, really well known in the Dungeons and Dragons lore. I actually designed this one in an online program called Sculpt GL, which I will also do in a future episode. So Sculpt GL is a really fun program. All I really know how to do in it actually is beholders, so I've created a whole bunch of beholders. Also happens to be one of my favorite creatures from Dungeons and Dragons. So this one I did not prime, and I wanted to sort of show the difference of that. This one I did with something that's called shading. So I did this one in a brown shading, and then I will paint over it. It's basically going to change the color as well when I paint it. But the one that I'm going to paint to show you right now is this one. This is the one that again, if you go onto our YouTube channel and you go to the interview that I did with Adrienne Kress, she and I used that 3D desktop hero program to create her character. She and I play Dungeons and Dragons with a bunch of other authors. We play it with Arthur Slade, Kevin Sylvester, Casey Dyer, oh my goodness, Peter, and I'm going to forget his name, live on, this is great, live on Twitch. I've forgotten one of my friend's last names. Peter Derbyshire, I always say Shire because my stepdad is from England, and it's been drilled into my head that Shire is Shire, but his name is Shire. So Peter Derbyshire, and then we also often have guests. So Adrian plays a tiefling bard with a cat named Atticus and an owl whose name I don't remember. And so this is her tiefling bard, and I just want to show you the detail on the printing too. I wonder if I can get that to focus. I wonder how close I can get on that. Nope. There we go out. So you can actually see there we go. You can see the feathers on the owl, which I think are really incredible, and you can see even her face. So you can see the eyes and the mouth and everything, and same with the cat. So what you want to be careful about, and I'm going to show you what I used to prime it, and I primed it before because I didn't want to prime it and then have to wait. And I don't know if I've seen the Cacodemon. I'm gonna have to look that up later. Thanks for giving me something to look up. That's awesome. Thank you, Ermintrude. So this is what I use to prime. So it's this primer is actually specifically made for modeling. So it's a primer that is designed for these kind of figures. You can use it in an airbrush. Some people will use sprays to prime. I started off using a spray, but because I live in a small space, because I live in the Lower Mainland, the problem with using a spray was that I was choking myself out. Even when I went out onto my balcony to do it, because my balcony is kind of closed in, I was winding up with headaches and stuff, and I thought, well, this definitely isn't good. So I realized that I needed an alternate way of doing it. So I discovered this, and it's great because it can be brushed on. So what I do to brush it on, and I do this with some paints too, is I went and I bought just a pill bottle, and so I open it up, I put in the primer, and then I brush it on, and I have a whole bunch of different brushes that I use. So brushes of all sorts of different shapes and sizes. That there you go. You can see that they are all very well used. And to clean them, I do have my glass of water here, which I'm going to give you some really important advice on in a moment. But to clean them, I put them into a glass with some rubbing alcohol, and that seems to really get them almost new again. When I'm painting, I just dip them in water, and that's what I paint them in. So I'm just going to put my paints down here for a second. The other thing that I use that I found is really handy is I used to do it on newspaper or cardboard, but I actually bought a bunch of, this is paper towel, but it's made out of bamboo, and it's really absorbent. It lasts a really long time. So rather than actual paper towel where it's really one use because it's not very good, this will last me weeks and weeks, and I think I've had the same roll now for almost a year, and it's just a really great way of making sure that your paint doesn't go everywhere on on your table or anything like that. I can also use it to let me see if I can get that over there a little bit more. There we go. I can also use it if I'm painting and then I just need to dry the brush a little bit. I can do that on the bamboo, and it works really well. So I actually recommend that. The other thing I recommend is having a special glass for your water, for rinsing your brushes. Make sure that if you have your glass of water, that your glass of water and your glass for rinsing your brushes are very different types of glasses. Try to use the same glass for rinsing your brushes every time, and have a different glass than you would normally use. Because one of the most common things that people do is they get so involved in what they're doing is they get thirsty, and then they grab the glass that they've been rinsing their brushes in, and they drink from it. I do not recommend it. I have never done that myself, but I've talked to a lot of artists who tell me that they have. So let's not do that, and that would be great. So the best way to do that, have a special glass that you never use for drinking, and that way you're not going to get mixed up. So that's pretty important. Where's my character? There she is. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to paint. We call her Elle. She's the bard of the party. And usually what I do is I kind of look at the character and I decide what colors I'm going to do. And there's probably a better process than the way that I do it. And if anybody else has any advice that they want to put into the chat, please do. I'm definitely all about learning from other people. This particular character, I'm going to start with sort of the biggest areas and then work my way down, and that's how I'm going to do it. So here we go. So this particular character, I am going to need some browns. So the paints that I have is some of the paints that are really specific colors that I want to be, I don't know, sort of nicer colors. I buy from a hobby store. They look like this. They're called Citadel paints. And I quite like these ones. For really base colors though, and I just realized I actually don't have any of them here, but for really base colors, I just get them from the big paints from any art store, because really these are just acrylic paints. That's all they are. They're not specially designed or anything. So any kind of acrylic paint, it's non-toxic, it's water-based, which is why you want that the layer primer on top of it, because the water-based paints will soak into the PLA. So I'm also going to use this silver because I've got a sword, and for the tiefling, let's see here. I'm looking for there's my black. I also want my green, and then once I've got them out, that's it just sort of helps me to visualize what the character is going to look like. I also have this quick shade that I really like. So this one here, this is a light tone, but just to give you an idea of what that does, if you see the character here, if you see the cape and you see the black shadows, that's actually just from brushing on that the quick shade. So the quick shade just goes sort of into the cracks, and it creates this really nice shadow look on different things, and I quite like it. So this character, I'm actually also going to give a little bit, just to make her a little bit bright, because she tends to be the do-gooder of the party. So I'm going to give her some light blue in her outfit, and I think that's a good place to start. Oh, that's what I was looking for. And Wildwood I really like for... There we go. I really like Wildwood just for one thing. So I'm thinking for her instrument, for example. So when I start off, I look at my brushes, and if it's a big surface and I don't need to be very careful, I might use a bigger brush. But otherwise, using a smaller brush, I find is pretty important in maintaining sort of the accuracy. So if you can see the size of this brush, and just to give you an idea. This is, the difference in sizes of brushes here. So this one here I might use for putting on the primer, because I don't have to be, it has to get everywhere. So that's the thing. This one I'm going to use for more detailed work. The other thing I want to say about the primer too is that there are a lot of details that can go missing if you just pile on the primer and let it dry. So when you're doing the primer, you really want to make sure that you brush it so that it's not going on in clumps. And the nice thing about the primer that I showed you is that that particular primer doesn't really clump up. It's made for modeling, and it works really well for modeling. So for Elle here, I think what I'm going to start off with is we're going to give her, if you notice, she's got kind of a tunic underneath her jacket there, so I'm going to make her tunic blue. And then let me see if I can do this in a way that you can see as well. So I just want to be really careful, and also to remember that if you make a mistake, it's okay. Well, it's like Bob Ross always said, right? Like, there's only happy mistakes. So you can't make really unhappy mistakes when you're painting a D&D character. If you do make a mistake, all you really have to do then is paint it again. So just wait for it to dry, put something else on top of it. If you really, really mess up, you can always... Okay, here I'm going to show you something. So just to show you the bamboo there, I can get that off of there so that I can have a little bit more control over it. But I was gonna say just primer it again and start again. But I also want to show you, if you notice, there's a little bit of a thread on my brush, because my brushes are actually pretty old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that little thread, because if that thread is on there, it means that I might accidentally paint something that I didn't mean to accidentally paint. So then I'm going to just paint like this. And one of the reasons why I'm doing the blue first is because there's no way that I can do the blue without getting it on the jacket and on the paint, and on the pants as well. And that's okay, because I can paint over the blue, because the blue is going to be lighter, and the other is going, and the jacket and the pants are going to be darker. So it's going to be pretty easy to paint over that. So there we go. So I'm just going to paint it like that, and that kind of starts her off. And there she goes. So there we go. So that's kind of started her off. She's wearing a nice, nice blue tunic. And the next thing that I'm going to do is the pants. And the pants I am going to do. And I have to tell you, I'm terrible with colors. I have no idea. I should not even be dressing myself half the time, because I just have no idea what colors go with what. So really, I'm going to guess. And if Adrian is watching this, we don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. That's exactly right. If Adrian happens to be watching this or watches this later, she did tell me what color she would like for her character, and I totally lost the email. I have no idea where that is. So hopefully she doesn't mind the choices that I'm about to make. And actually, you know what? I'm going to use the brown, and that's what I'm going to make the pants here. And again, I just want to. The thing with the bamboo is sometimes little stringies can get onto the brush, so you just want to make sure that it doesn't. And if it clumps on the brush, just touch it to your. Again, I can touch it to my bamboo, and then it gets rid of the clumping. And then there we go. Yep. And anytime you hear me say "oops," that's because I have made an error. So you're going to hear me say that a lot, even in other videos when I'm showing you other programs, because I'm a firm believer in just giving things a try and seeing what happens. Even just setting up for Twitch. So this is our first Twitch stream here at Richmond Public Library. It's a lot more complicated than the way that I'm used to doing it. So I decided to make it complicated. I got a couple of cameras set up, and it was frustrating at first, because sometimes things are hard, but in the end, when you try things that are really hard and you wind up succeeding in them, it's a pretty good feeling. And even if you don't completely succeed, if you've learned a lot from it and you can share that with other people, it's actually pretty rewarding. So you can see here, that's starting to turn out pretty nice. What I will tell you is, if you really want to get into this, you can get things that hold the model, because what's going to wind up happening is, because I'm using my hands, as I'm painting, especially the base, as I'm painting it, I'm going to run out of places to grab it. If I'm using acrylic paint, so if I get it on me, it is water soluble, it's not toxic, so I don't have to worry about burning my hands or anything like that. Ermine tree, yes, it can be repainted over after it has all been dried. So if you've, that's what I mean, if you've decided that you painted it and you're like, this is totally wrong, just start again. Just re-primer it. That's what I would suggest, so that you cover all of the other colors, because it will be harder to repaint it and get the colors that you're expecting if you try to paint one color over another color. Zelda from Breath of the Wild. I take that as a compliment. That is, thank you. Yeah. So, and then there was something else I was going to tell you too, and now I've totally forgotten. I was saying that you can get things that will hold the model. What I'll do is at home when I'm doing this is I actually just use a pair of needle nose pliers, and I hold it with the needle nose pliers, because if I get paint on my needle nose pliers, I only use them for taking the supports off of models. If I get a little bit of paint on it, it's not a big deal. You can also get magnifying glass. So if you're doing some really detailed work, because sometimes with these 3D models, these guys are so small. We're on a 28 millimeter miniature, I believe, if I remember correctly. So in games like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, each square, I'm making the assumption that anybody watching this has played Dungeons and Dragons, but each square represents 5 feet of space, and each creature, medium-based creature like a human, is 28 millimeters wide. So sort of the base. Where am I here? The base. This is actually a little bit larger than, actually quite a bit larger than 28 meters for this one. So I should show you this one, which is actually done to scale. And on this one, so that's what the PLA looked like before I painted it, and that's what it looked like after. But that's 28 millimeters, and then you have 56 millimeters for a larger creature. So for example, this one is based on the 56 because it's large, and you keep going up and up and up with that. So if you're doing the really tiny ones and you're having trouble seeing, you can use a magnifying glass. What I've actually discovered is when I first started doing this, my hand would shake a little bit like this, and because I was trying to hold it so steady, and I actually found that if I rest my hand a little bit on a table, on a surface, it helps a lot. And then for my painting hand, I kind of rest my 2 fingers on my thumb, and then I use that sort of as a fulcrum, and it gives me a little bit of control. But I have actually found that over the last couple of years, my hands have stopped shaking, they've gotten stronger, and I think a part of that is just the confidence in not worrying about whether or not you're going to make a mistake, or can I hold this properly. You just learn to hold it properly, and it's kind of cool when that happens. It's the same as if you ever get into photography and you're holding a camera, and the first while your hands are kind of shaking because you're not used to holding this thing, and then after a while you don't even realize it, but you get more and more steady. So these are really good things to get into for strengthening your motor control. It's also a really good thing to get into even just for keeping your mind active. So how if you do a lot of puzzles, you can keep your mind active. Your mind will get stronger. It really helps you when you get into your into your more senior years. And Ermintrude, you will get stronger. I believe in you. So I can't remember where I was going with that now. Definitely keep practicing. So I lost my train of thought on the other thing, but that's okay. And I lost my train of thought because I was just thinking that what I'm going to have for her now is her sort of outfit is over the tunic. I am going to, here, I'll show you what she looks like right now. So, she looks like that. So I'm going to do that in black. And normally too, if I wasn't doing this right now on Twitch, I would give her a little bit of time to dry. This paint actually does dry pretty fast, which is good. But I would actually, if I really wanted to do, a really fantastic job, I would just give it some time. And I'm just going to concentrate a little bit here. So right now, because I'm doing black, I want to be really careful, because this is the layer that's actually painting over other layers. So where I said, there are no mistakes and there's only happy accidents, this is one of those times where there's actually sad accidents. So this could result in me having to wait until it dries and then and then having to redo a part of it. Again, it's not the end of the world if that's what happens. But because I'm doing black, it's just hard to paint over because it's such a dark color. So I wanna be very careful, and even though I said oops, I actually didn't make a mistake there. I thought I did. So yeah, there we go. And I'm just thinking, because mostly I'm painting over like this. I'm gonna see if I can move this. There, how's that? That's better. So now it's like you're here painting with me. I feel like if Bob Ross had gotten into painting models, that he would have had, well, I mean, he already had a pretty cool show, but can you imagine if he had like gotten into painting D&D models, like the kind of things that, like how much fun would he have had if he had done that? Because like his landscapes were just so amazing and so accessible for people to try, right? And I just kind of feel like that would have been a really fun Twitch channel to watch. Bob Ross does 3D modeling. Okay, so this is the hard part, and I want to show you this. So her hand is kind of in the way. So it's even hard to show you. Okay, do you see there's, I'll let that focus a little bit, but do you see how there's black, and then there you can see right in here there's the gray. So what I want to do is I want to try to make sure that I'm not going onto her belt there, but it's really hard not to. But I think I did it actually. I think it's okay. There, yeah. Yeah, that worked. Okay. So the other thing too is that because I'm not really letting layers dry, if I hit another layer that's still wet, it's you know what happens when you get two paints that hit each other. They sort of blend into each other. What color for the kitty? Oh, that's a good question. The big show. What color do you think the kitty should be? I'm gonna let you decide. So if I have the color, that's the color the kitty will be. Okay, so see if I can get. Oh yeah, no, I didn't hit it. So good. This is a tough part here. There we go. So that actually orange tabby. Oh, you're gonna make that challenging for me. I like it. Okay, so I think that actually worked out pretty well. I'm gonna do her vest in black as well. And before I start the vest, what I'm wondering is, okay, so let me see if I've got stuff that I can do. An orange tabby. Let's see. I don't know that I do. Orange might be the one color that I don't really have. I could. Is there such thing as a gray tabby? I'm actually not sure that I can do the tabby look. How about, what color is this? How about copper? Does copper work? I think we're gonna we'll do a copper kitty because that's the closest I have to the tabby. Okay, and the owl too. I gotta figure out what color the owl is gonna be. Okay, so again, I gotta be a little bit careful because I don't want to go into the blue, and that's sort of the danger zone there, because blue is really light and it's going to be really hard to paint over black if I get into that. Not impossible, but definitely difficult. And she kind of has gloves on, but I'm actually just going to go like that. Copper kitties are distantly related to gorgons. That's not wrong. I like that. Okay. Yeah, this is working out pretty well here. Okay. And then for characters like this, because they have, like she has this owl on her shoulder. Let me see if I can show you this. So she has this owl on her shoulder, right? And I'll just let that focus a little bit. And the claws are you in between the talons. You can see parts of her jacket. So this is where probably having a magnifying glass would actually come in handy, because it's that kind of fine detail. This is also where you have to kind of decide, doesn't matter that much to you. If I was doing this professionally, for sure, we before COVID hit, we had games of Dungeons and Dragons here at the library, and we had at one point. Oh, I just hit her horn. At one point, we had about 42 players in about 7 games, including 2 for teens, and it was quite the time. And one of the guys who volunteered to DM for us did modeling for movie companies. So he, in his spare time, he did his D&D characters, which was really cool. And so he'd bring these really intricately painted models, and so to him, because he's professional, it would definitely matter, and he's got all the equipment at home. For me, because I'm not professional and I'm just doing this for fun, I would take the approach of, this is it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And each time I do it, actually I get a little bit better, which I think is that's the goal, right? If you can improve a little bit. There are lots of videos online that will show you how to do things better and differently. If you want to get different types of shading and stuff, you can watch videos online. One thing that I have really realized as I'm doing this right now is that it's a lot easier to do this when you're not trying to talk at the same time. So, that's also adding a little bit of a challenge, which isn't terrible. Sometimes it's good to challenge yourself. So I'm kind of enjoying the extra little bit of a challenge of can I keep everything straight without making a mistake as I talk at the same time? Can I chew gum and pat my head and rub my stomach at the same time? Probably not, but this I can do. Oops. So it works out. Okay. So let me show you Elle here. This is, and I think I'm gonna do the kitty so that she can dry a little bit there. There, that's focused a little bit better. So there she is. I think she looks pretty stylish. It's not too bad. I could, wait for it to dry a little bit, because I think I got a little bit of black. You can see it ran into the blue shirt there at the bottom. So basically, once it's dried, I would maybe put a little bit of blue over it, see if that does it, see if that fixes it. And for now, while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to, remember I showed you the little pill box, and I'm going to open it up. I don't actually know that this paint that I have is still good. I've had this bottle for a really long time, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to just squeeze a little bit in, because I don't, a little bit at a time is better, because whatever I put in there I have to use, because it's going to dry out, and I don't want to waste paint, because that's a waste, and I don't like wasting things. So okay, here we go. Copper Kitty. This is going to be my version of the tabby. Okay. And it's kind of important not to clump it on, because if you clump it on too much or at all, you can lose the detail of the character. So if you do find that you clumped it on, what you can do is you can look at it and go, oh my goodness, I totally clumped that on the face. So clean your brush, and then take your brush and just dry brush it like this, and that will spread out the paint on the face or wherever you've clumped it, and then there, you can see that fixed it. So then I'm going to just wash my brush there, and there we go. Here's the cat. And the only part that I could accidentally paint as I'm painting the cat is the base. And the base I'm going to do in a dark green. Actually, no, I think I'm going to do it in a gray because it's kind of a cracked. I don't know if you can see it on there, but yeah, kind of. Let me let that focus. It's kind of cracked, so it's like she's walking in a dungeon or something, or a old stronghold or castle. And actually, this cat is turning out pretty good. I'm liking the copper. That was a good choice, Big Show. Okay, so here's something that I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you on here. I need to get the back of the cat. It's really hard to go from the sides. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to go between her feet. So what I don't really want to do is to get it onto the boots. But this is also why it's good that I didn't do the boots first. So I'm going to really carefully here. And I got a little bit on the base, but again, if I do the base in a dark color, that's going to it's going to cover that. And I think that actually does the cat. There. Okay. Here we go. So I've got the feet, I've got the back. Yeah, so there we go. There's the cat here. And it's actually going to create quite a nice shine too. So that's what she's looking like so far, just like that. And I don't really trust that black has. Oh, and I got a little bit of copper on her there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a splash of black, and there. Oh, I cleaned it right up. So there she is. There. I'll let that focus a little bit. And there. So I think the sash I'm going to wait to do. I am going to do her, it's not a banjo or a fiddle, but her instrument. It's kind of like a banjo or a fiddle. It could be a banjo. Actually, I don't remember. Let's call it a banjo. Maybe somebody in the chat knows what it is, and they can tell me. So for the banjo, I want it to look wood. So that I have this, like I said, I have this wildwood, contrast wildwood. Lute. That's it. Thank you, Deeth. It's a lute, and I'm going to paint the lute. And it's not to be mistaken with finding loot, although you can find a lute. And I noticed that this bottle of wildwood is actually really runny. So I'm a little bit worried that one of the reasons why it might be runny actually is because I just dipped my my brush into the water, and if you don't dry it out a lot, then you wind up really diluting your paint, which is not a good thing, obviously. So what I might have to do is just wait for that to dry, but actually, this is a good example of those happy accidents. Okay, so here, hold on. I'm going to show you this because this is kind of cool. So when I 3D printed this character, I knew that a lot of the detail came out, and I was pretty happy about that. Anybody who was working with me that day, I was like, oh my gosh, you gotta see this. This is so cool. And I was so happy, but I didn't realize how much detail had actually shown up on this entire character until just now. So I did get a lot of brown on her hands, and that's actually okay, because I'll paint her hands last, and I can paint over the brown. But here, let me see if I can show you this. So look at this, like, because it was watered down, it kind of gave this sort of shadowy effect, but you can actually see the strings on the lute now. So that's how much detail came out. Maybe I can go out a little bit more. There, you can see the strings. So it's pretty neat that these 3D printers are able to do that kind of detail, especially because the lute, you know, if you notice, it's upside down, and it's still printed the lute. It printed that much detail, so I'm pretty happy about that. It got a lot of detail. Okay, so I think the next thing I'm going to do is maybe her hair. So what do you think if her hair and the cat are kind of the same color, like a copper, a copper look? That's going back to the idea of eventually we start to resemble our pets, kind of thing. Which hopefully isn't too true, because if it is true, then my dog sheds a lot for one thing, but he's also really lazy, and I would hate to think that I ever would get that lazy, but there. Yeah, actually the copper looks really good. Okay. Yeah, there's a bird. The bird, the owl. So here, let me see if I can go, because again, look at the detail there. Like the detail, you can see the strands of her hair on top, between her horns, and you can see the owl's feathers, which is just, to me, it's kind of amazing. And this is one of those instances where there's no way, with the equipment that I have, that I can paint her hair and not get some of it on the horns, and also not get some of it on the owl. So, it's 4:23, and I'm here till doing this till 4:30, so I've only got 7 minutes left. So I am going to probably, I don't know if I can finish. Let's see how much I can get done in 7 minutes. I probably won't finish it necessarily, but what I certainly can do is the next stream that I do, I can show the finished product so that you can get a good idea. Because what I would like to do, actually, is after I've painted this character, is to use the shadow on it, because especially on the hair, because what the shadow will do is, like, all that detail that I showed you, there's I'll show you again, the quick shadow, this stuff, it will seep into those cracks, and it will make it just look a lot more realistic. It'll look really cool, and so I definitely want to do that. And I don't want to rush it just because I've only got 7 minutes left on this program. I may have guessed a little bit wrong of where her ears were, but once the hair dries, I can certainly fix that. But here, let me show you here. There we go. That's what she looks like so far. And yeah, and I really like that lute. Lute is really good. Okay. So I got 5 minutes, so I have time that I'm going to use this silver, because I did want to show you, I really like this silver that I got. There. And I'm going to paint the sword. And then there's lots of things that you can do post-processing, if you want to sand down the lines a little bit, so you want to be careful because you don't want to sand down the detail and all that. But and so you can sort of see the silver on the sword. I'd probably actually want to do that a couple more times just to get that really nice and shiny. But there are lots of things that you can do for post-processing on your minis or any kind of 3D print you do. So one of my coworkers, Steve, he's going to be doing some tips on how to do that in our Twitch, I believe. So I mean, if I'm wrong, you can be you can correct me, Ermintrude, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So yeah, I think because it's getting to be that time, I'm going to show you this, and here is L, almost completely finished. Again, you want just a couple of things to take away is if you're in the Lower Mainland, sign up for Richmond Public Library library card. Take our course online for learning how to use Cura. Get certified. Use our 3D printers. These characters here, it goes by 10 cents per gram. That's basically what it costs to print. These guys take about an hour and a half, and in gram wise, they're anywhere between 3 grams and maybe if you have a big one, might be 6 or 10 grams, but unlikely. So they're very cheap to make, really fun to paint. You want to get a good primer so that you prime it, because PLA will suck in the moisture, and you don't want to be painting a whole bunch of layers if one or two can work. Yeah, I mean, think about how much these, if you get the the pewter ones in the hobby shops, and they're not custom. They're so great. They serve their purpose. Don't get me wrong. But if you want a custom character that represents the character that you were playing, this is the best way to do it. All right, so I am going to sign off before the big hook comes out to take me off the show. And I'm just going to say thank you for everybody who came, and thank you to everybody who took this journey with me. This is the first Twitch for Richmond Public Library Twitch stream that I've done, and it was a lot of fun. And finally, I got most of this model painted, which I've had sitting on my shelf for months, and I've been wanting to do. So this gave me a really good excuse to do that. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope everybody has a really great day. See you.